Nobody goes home. Nobody else comes through. It's just him and me.
Welcome back, movie fans, as we dive into the movie that undoubtedly launched James Cameron's career. Now sit back and grab your 40-watt phase plasma rifles as I rapid fire some awesome trivia from the Terminator 1984. And as always, if you learned something new today, please consider liking the video and subscribing to support my small channel. While shooting this film, James Cameron often resorted to what he called guerrilla filmmaking as a way of getting around acquiring permits needed to film certain scenes. This involved the production crew and actors quickly arriving at a specified location, shooting the scene and leaving before the police arrived. As a result, some of the people seen in a few of the shots are actually everyday citizens, completely unaware they're in a movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger worked with guns every day for a month to prepare for the role. The first 2 weeks of filming, he practiced weapon stripping and reassembling blindfolded until the motions were automatic, like a machine. He spent hours at the shooting range and practicing with different weapons without blinking or looking at them when reloading or cocking. He also had to be ambidextrous. He practiced different moves up to 50 times. He wound up garnering a compliment in Soldier of Fortune magazine for his realistic handling of the weapons on camera. Near the beginning of the movie, when Sarah Connor receives a message on her answering machine breaking her date, the voice on the machine is James Cameron's. Years later, Hamilton and Cameron got married and subsequently divorced. Arnold Schwarzenegger tried to avoid Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn as much as possible since the Terminator was trying to kill them, as not to form connections. James Cameron got the idea of giving Arnold Schwarzenegger even fewer lines in the film than Schwarzenegger's earlier film, Conan the Barbarian, 1982, in which Schwarzenegger only had 24 lines. In this film, Schwarzenegger has only 14 lines. One afternoon during a break in filming, Arnold Schwarzenegger went into a restaurant in downtown LA to get some lunch and realized all too late that he was still in Terminator makeup with a missing eye, exposed jawbone, and burned flesh. The beginning of production was postponed for 9 months due to Arnold Schwarzenegger's commitment to Conan the Destroyer, 1984. During this time, James Cameron wanted to be working, but didn't have the time to do a whole other film. He had a talk with some producers at 20th Century Fox who liked his screenplay for Terminator. They gave him a writing assignment, which turned out to be Aliens, 1986. On the same day, he was also asked to write a script for Rambo: First Blood Part 2 in 1985. While handling these two assignments, he also did additional work for his Terminator screenplay, writing each script at night at a different desk in order to keep the projects apart. He calculated how many pages he had to write each night by dividing the total number of pages by the number of waking hours per night. He said he was able to accomplish this by drinking lots of coffee, a habit he finally kicked after completing Terminator 2: Judgment Day, 1991. Arnold Schwarzenegger was originally being considered to play Kyle Reese instead of the Terminator. The bodybuilder turned actor had made something of a name for himself in The Long Goodbye, 1973, Pumping Iron in 1977, and Conan the Barbarian, 1982. And when Orion Pictures executive Mike Medavoy met the actor at a party, he sent him the script for consideration. James Cameron, however, had envisioned Reese as a non-bulky and more sensitive man, so he was less than enthusiastic about casting the former Mr. Universe in the pivotal role. Largely on Medavoy's insistence, Cameron went out to meet and have lunch with him anyway. He later admitted that he had planned to pick a fight with Schwarzenegger so that he could claim that the actor was impossible to work with. But against his expectations, they got along just fine, and Schwarzenegger showed great enthusiasm about the script in general, and its dark antagonist in particular, providing tips on how the villain should behave. It was then that Cameron had a change of heart and offered Schwarzenegger the title role of the Terminator, saying that this movie is not about the hero, it's about the Terminator. Schwarzenegger gladly accepted, even overruling his agent who advised him against playing villains. Cameron and Schwarzenegger have been good friends ever since. O.J. Simpson was considered for the Terminator, but the producers feared he was too nice to be taken seriously as a cold-blooded killer. In 1990, before Simpson's first trial, Dark Horse Comics printed issues using his likeness. In the film, the name of the nightclub where the Terminator first targets Sarah was named Tech Noir, after a film genre which James Cameron coined himself in describing what category this film falls under, after dismissing the notions that it was a mere horror or slasher film. Tech Noir films like Blade Runner 1982 and this film combine the old-style grittiness of noir films and the futuristic elements of a sci-fi thriller. Cameron himself had the club built specifically for the film and had to turn away local clubgoers who thought Tech Noir was a real nightclub. James Cameron got the idea for the film during post-production of his previous film Piranha 2: The Spawning in 1981. Since he had been fired from the production, he had spent the last of his own money on the plane ticket to get there, hoping to be at least involved in the editing process. Without money for proper food, he became increasingly sick and went to bed one night with a high fever. He had a nightmare of a metal endoskeleton emerging from flames, dragging itself over the floor, holding kitchen knives. When he woke up, he immediately made a drawing of his vision. Most of the script was written backwards from there. The endoskeleton would have to be futuristic, but since Cameron couldn't afford to set the film in the future, the solution was to bring the future to the present, hence the time travel aspect of which the script was written. When special effects artist Stan Winston was brought in, he added a few more designs for the endoskeleton. But in the end, they basically used the one that Cameron had drawn the first time. James Cameron's original story idea was much more elaborate and involved Skynet sending two Terminators back in time. The first one was a cyborg that would be defeated by a human also sent back in time. The Resistance actually sent two men, but one was to die during the time travel. A second Terminator, one consisting of liquid metal that would be able to shapeshift, would be sent by Skynet in response. Cameron briefly considered clay animation and dark shots to portray the shapeshifter, but he soon realized that the concept was too ambitious for what he could achieve with contemporary techniques. He also knew that his reputation at the time wasn't big enough to sell a story of such scope to a studio, so he used only the first half of it. When a completely computer-generated special effect proved to be a success in Cameron's The Abyss 1989, he revived the idea of the Liquid Terminator for the sequel, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Arnold Schwarzenegger's famous line, "I'll be back," was originally scripted as "I'll come back." The initial draft for the movie was sold to Gale Ann Hurd, James Cameron's production partner and former collaborator at New World Pictures, for the price of only $1. The symbolic gesture came with a blood oath. Hurd had to promise to do everything in her power to get the film produced, but with Cameron as director. She kept her word and dismissed every studio that showed interest but wanted to ditch Cameron. He and Hurd would get romantically involved during production of this movie, made Aliens 1986 and The Abyss 1989 together, and were married from 1985 to 89. They had separated by the time they had made The Abyss. Michael Biehn almost didn't get the role of Kyle Reese because in his first audition, he spoke in a southern accent as a result of working on a part for a stage production for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, in which he didn't get the role. During a talk with Biehn's agent, the producers mentioned that they liked Biehn's performance, but they didn't want Reese's accent, making him seem too regionalized. This puzzled the agent, who asked, "What accent?" After the mystery was cleared up, the producers called Biehn back for another audition, and he got the part. The puppet of Arnold Schwarzenegger's face took over 6 months to create. According to a 2008 interview with Lance Henriksen, James Cameron had no agent and was either living in his car or sleeping on the couch of a friend when he wrote the script for the film. Arnold Schwarzenegger's iconic catchphrase almost became, "I will be back," because he thought it sounded more machine-like without a contraction. He also felt "I'll" sounded too feminine. It was one major disagreement between Schwarzenegger and James Cameron, and all Cameron had to say to that was, "I don't tell you how to act, so don't tell me how to write." Arnold Schwarzenegger had his eyebrows insured by Lloyd's of London as he feared that they might not grow back properly after he shaved them off for the scene where he runs over a car on fire in the alley after the tech noir shootout. Shots through the Terminator's vision show a dump of the ROM assembler code from the Apple II operating system. Other code visible is written in COBOL. Mel Gibson turned down the role of the Terminator, simply feeling he wasn't right for the part. After seeing the film, he praised Arnold Schwarzenegger as a much better choice. Science fiction author Harlan Ellison sued James Cameron, claiming that while he hugely enjoyed the film, he felt the story was plagiarized from 2 of the Outer Limits 1963 episodes that he had written, named The Outer Limits Soldier 1964 and The Outer Limits Demon with a Glass Hand, 1964. The concept of Skynet could also have been borrowed from an Ellison short story called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. The suit was settled out of court, and newer prints of the film acknowledged Ellison. Cameron has claimed that this settlement was forced upon him by the producers, who refused to support him. He felt that Ellison made invalid and opportunistic claims and wanted the case to go on trial. However, the insurance company told him that he would be held personally responsible for financial damages in the event that he lost the trial. Since he was short on money at the time, Cameron couldn't take the risk, so he had no choice but to accept the settlement, a fact that he has always resented. The crew made t-shirts saying, "You can't scare me, I work for James Cameron." The laser sight on the 45 long slide was specially built by Laser Products Corporation, now Surefire. This was in the early days of laser-aimed weapons, and what was seen was actually not a complete assembly. Only the laser was mounted, but the required battery pack was hidden from view. In those days, the battery packs were very large, about the size of a TV remote control. A wire was hidden underneath Arnold Schwarzenegger's sleeve. Linda Hamilton broke her ankle prior to production, so most of the chase scenes were moved toward the end of the shooting schedule to allow her leg to heal. Even so, her ankle had to be taped every day so she could do her running, and she spent most of the shoot in pain. The movie was released in the late 1980s in Poland under the title The Electronic Murderer. The title was changed because there is a Polish word, Terminator, meaning roughly an apprentice, and so the title was changed to something more catchy and interesting to the audience. Sylvester Stallone was considered for the Terminator. Coincidentally, a year after, James Cameron and Stallone wrote Rambo: First Blood Part 2, 1985, together. Also, there was a competition between Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger's success in action movies about who could win in a battle, Rambo or the Terminator. During the final chase scene, as Reese tosses pipe bombs at the Terminator, the pyrotechnic charges can be seen on the street. Each had a pressure-sensitive strip for triggering the explosion when run over by either the Terminator's motorcycle or the truck. Arnold Schwarzenegger was considered so indispensable to the film that when he went off to do Conan the Destroyer in 1984 first, they were prepared to wait rather than recast him in the interim. The fog in the scene where Sarah and Reese leave the bridge where they spent the night is actually bug spray due to the big fly scare in the filming location at the time. The crew was going to wait until the spray had dissipated, but decided to use it as fog for the effect instead. The future scene when Reese throws a grenade under the tread of one of Skynet's machines took 26 attempts to get it right. Arnold Schwarzenegger allegedly delayed the start of filming by 2 days by insisting that the custom-made leather jacket wasn't manly enough. When the Terminator performed surgery on itself to remove its damaged prosthetic eye, although the face is that of a puppet stand-in, the hands that performed the surgery are actually Arnold Schwarzenegger's. Director James Cameron seriously considered Jennifer Jason Leigh for the role of Sarah Connor. It was narrowed down to herself and Linda Hamilton. Deborah Winger successfully auditioned and won the role of Sarah Connor. However, she later changed her mind and turned down the role. Bruce Willis and the English pop star Sting were considered for the role of Kyle Reese. Tom Selleck was rumored to be cast as the Terminator, but was forced to turn down the role due to his commitment to the TV series Magnum P.I. Kevin Kline and Michael Douglas were also considered. Allegedly, studio executives threatened to shut down the project if James Cameron filmed additional future war scenes beyond the script. The Terminator has 21 minutes of actual screen time. Gina Davis auditioned for the role of Sarah Connor. She co-starred with Linda Hamilton in Secret Weapons 1985 the following year. Arnold mentioned in several interviews that this was truly a painful experience. Ron Perlman, Stephen Lang, Chevy Chase, Michael Keaton, Alec Baldwin, O.J. Simpson, Tom Selleck, Harrison Ford, Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, Richard Gere, Robin Williams, Jack Nicholson, Martin Sheen, Kevin Costner, and John Travolta were all considered for the role of the Terminator. Well, that about wraps it up for another amazing movie. Let me know in the comments which James Cameron movie is your favorite. I think many of us owe James a beer for bringing us some of the most entertaining sci-fi flicks. Thanks for watching, and remember to keep watching that cinema and stay cool, guys.
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop. Ever.